Hey friends, thanks a lot for tuning in. Glad you could join us. I have a friend of mine with me today, somebody who I've been following for a few years, and he's a fellow drummer, kind of like me, hermano de otra madre, brother from another mother, but we're in the movement industry. My friend is a physical therapist based in Chicago. He just is releasing his second book, which I purchased last night, called Foundations of Movement, a Brain-Based Musculoskeletal Approach. And it's my pleasure to bring my friend here again, Adam Wolf. How you doing, man?
Carl, thank you for having me. It's always so nice to hang out with you. You're one of those guys we have so much to talk about always, and none of it has to do
Not enough time, man.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you in a couple of years since I was out there teaching with Brent, and
we had a great time. We went and ate tacos and hung out, and that was a lot of fun, man. I remember that.
That was a blast. That was a blast, man.
Gotta do it again here soon once we're done with the Rona.
Yeah, right. My Corona. So anyways, the first book, and I have it in here. What's the name of the first book?
Real Movements.
Yes, thank you.
Perspective on integrated motion and motor control. So this one is called Foundations of Movements and a Brain-Based Musculoskeletal Approach. I kind of struggled with the name and I didn't quite know what to call it. The working title it took me a number of years to sort of work through and write and put together. But the working title for a lot of it was Fundamentals of Intervention, which is really sort of what I wrote it upon. I was challenged at one point to kind of put together what my consistencies in treatment approach is, because I've learned a bunch of different things from a bunch of different people, and a lot of it at first glance doesn't seem to necessarily go together, when in fact they do. Yeah. And so based off of that, I sort of wanted to put together a thought process or a hierarchy or structure to anchor to, where I could repeat what I was doing, because everybody's said to me for a lot of people have said to me for a while, how do you reproduce yourself? And I don't really think I need to reproduce myself. I just think you need like a quality thought process. Not everyone needs Adam. You just need like a quality clinician that has a quality thought process. And so what I did over the past number of years, while there's a number of quality thought processes out there and none of them are the right way, I just chose to put down what mine was, and that's where the book came from. And I know writing your own book, we were just talking about that, but the big struggle at the end came to me is like, when do I put it down? When do I stop? I still wanted to kind of add and look in, but at some point my wife was finally like, you need to put this fucking thing down. And so, and I did. And now I know what book 3 is going to be. And so I think probably book 3, we'll start. She says I need to like stop and soak in the moment and appreciate it, because I'm already like kind of next one. But
yeah.
And so what it is for me, it's like I like to create things. I always am sort of a tinkerer. I like to create. I like to think about. I like to synthesize information. I read a lot. I study a lot. Yeah. What I've realized in this process, and some of the book shares this, is that I'm a control freak. And so some of the book actually is my personal experience getting treated from this brain-based approach. The book is neuro-edited by a good friend of mine and colleague named Dr. Michael Drizwicki, who also is here in Chicago. And so through the book, there's some of his sort of, they're in highlights, and they're just sort of his approach on what I'm saying. And so it really adds this neurology perspective. He tends to work with very clinically, people that have brain issues from a clinical standpoint, traumatic brain injuries, concussions, dizziness, that kind of thing. So he worked with me. I was depressed and had some anxiety. And so at that point, I'd been working on the book for about a year and had put it down for about 6 months. And so I picked the book back up after Mike treated me, and my experiences to getting treated with this brain-based approach, which I had taken interest in over the few years before that anyway. And when it just had such profound impact on me, and I was sort of using it in my practice, it just sort of created some excitement for me to dive deeper into the brain and recognize how it does affect the human movement in general. And regardless, typically like the neurology approach, and most times in the people that I learn with and from, they tend to, it's always a clinical basis of how to apply this information, meaning somebody that has dizziness or VPPV or concussion or whatnot. So these people that have clinical dysfunction, my interest really lie, after being a PT now for 15 years, is in what I'll call subclinical dysfunction. That's what I've sort of grown to recognize it as. And what I mean by that is, where is there the opportunity to improve the way the brain takes up information? Because the brain, as a good friend of mine, Dr. David Trauster, who's great at...
Oh, is he the guy in Atlanta?
He was in Atlanta, Life Chiropractic College. He started there, but now he's in Chicago.
Okay. Oh, great.
A friend of mine.
Good.
And so
Yeah.
between Dave and between Mike, I get a lot of private lessons here. But Dave, one of the things he expressed to me that I heard from him early on, actually at a course in Atlanta about 5 years ago, is that the brain is the ultimate virtual reality machine. And that just sort of floored me right there. And if you think about Steve Capobianco talks about from Rock Tape, the medical director of Rock Tape, Steve talks about the brain being a submarine driver, and that always fascinated me. And the more I learned about it, the more it sort of made sense. And that analogy being the person driving the submarine doesn't ever know where they're driving the submarine. They get information from all these people to say steer up, steer down, steer left, steer right, twist left, right. They get the periscope looking through and the sonar and all those things. And it's the same for the brain. So your brain gets its information primarily from proprioception. It's a term we've always heard, and it's sort of a sexy term, but what does it really mean?
Yeah.
So the book dives into that. The brain gets information. So proprioception, your eyes and your inner ear canals, your vestibular system. And those three systems need to give your brain information up. If we think about pain as an output, those are the three systems giving the brain input information. So then the question becomes, major systems, there's other systems. So then the question becomes, if pain is an output, what input should we change? And for me on a larger scale, where is the opportunity to, which system do I want to primarily drive? Maybe you might have musculoskeletal pain, but maybe you have an opportunity for improvement in your vestibulo-ocular reflexes. Maybe your eyes are unstable. And there's very simple, ways to assess that. Maybe your inner ears, there's just your brain isn't giving the same information. Your brain isn't getting the same information from the vestibular system compared to what some of these other systems tell it. And so my interest personally, and where the book was written around, was like, how can we take that approach and appreciate neuroanatomy, which is really what it is. It's just understanding anatomy, just like the three-dimensional movement. And how can we look at that? And through our sort of summative assessments, because the interesting thing is there's no one way to look at any of these systems. You can't just look at proprioception. You can't just look at the eyes. You can't just look at the inner ear. And so you need to evaluate and assess in a bunch of ways, and then summate your assessments, right? And that's sort of so I talk about that, and then really what the opportunity is. How do you drive? What's the quality information you want to drive? I'm sort of rambling, but that's really what the book is about.
No, it's cool.
Every brain-based approach, and it's set up sort of in my fundamentals of intervention. Mike Drizwicki sort of throws pieces out there. We talk about pain. We've got a couple of case studies. He has a whole case study. There's a case study just on me about my experience. Chapter 6, I think, is central integration dysfunction, but it's my experience going to get treated by him.
Adam's story. Okay, cool.
Pulling it out. And it's got my eye, my eye charts from my VNGs, and
neat.
Really interesting his neuro findings and how he treated me and what a difference it made, and then my interpretation of it. And so it's sort of that. It's applied to an outpatient sort of movement, musculoskeletal perspective. And then at the end, he has a case study. Mike does a case study that I throw in on edit, kind of editing wise. And,
I see some. We got case studies at the bottom. We got Adam's story up here. Yeah, that's cool.
So I'm excited about it. I'm excited about it. Yeah, I'm a little nervous about it. There's some anxiety, a little more exposed. I feel, you put yourself out there.
I can relate to that, and I haven't released mine, but it's getting uploaded tonight. I am done. I'm at the last 1/10 of 1%, and that's the slowest. But table of contents.
What I've realized is I like to create, and that's what I've done with So when people say, "What did I do with my time here, this quarantine time?" I finished my book.
Me too. So one of the things I think is interesting is the first time I met you, we were in New Jersey, and you were teaching at Mark Carangelo's place.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And that was a ball. So the night before, you and I met up.
Didn't you drive like 8 hours or something to come to the class or something like that?
Or maybe 5 hours. Yeah. That's all. But I had to meet you, and I actually wanted to meet Mark, but I wanted to meet you, and I wanted that course because it was the Blades course.
That's right.
And, that's not in my scope of practice as a trainer, but the information is very valuable.
Information's information. It's a tool.
What the hell, right? So you asked me, and I had been so deeply entrenched into a certain, group of assessments that I'm doing, although I was opening up and learning more. And then I remember telling you one of the assessments I do, and you're like, well, why? What are you basing anything on? Like, I knew what I wanted to say, and I say this with respect. You're like, no, what about this? What about that? What about that? And all of a sudden I'm like, holy shit. Holy crap. So it got me outside of my box. Then, this is a famous story now around the world. I tell it is, so when we do the barbecue roll and we do the test first,
Right.
the assessment first, I say, well, here's my story. I was having a beer in a bar with Adam Wolf in New Jersey. He tested me. He made me roll on the floor a certain way, turning my head, and did, and then turn about, get up, boom. You can't break me. I'm strong. I mean, that thing alone taught me so much. Plus, the next day at the workshop taught me so much about the integration of things. If one system is compromised, then by default the other ones have to be affected somehow to some degree, right? And everything's connected. So
yeah, it's integrated. Without integration, you have disintegration, which is something that I heard, and that comes from a guy named Dan Siegel, who talks about interpersonal neurobiology. Dan Siegel talks about, but he talks about disintegration. And one of the things he talks about from a neurobiological perspective, he looked at the manual of cognitive disorders, the big book that has the descriptions about it. And what his researchers found was that any diagnosis of like mental dysfunction or disorder has two things in common: chaos and rigidity, expressed in various ways.
Wow.
And from a neurological perspective, and if we expound upon that and like step back and look at that, it's the same thing with movement, I believe. And that if there is an integration within movement, which I do believe that we can quantify and qualify as well, that it is disintegrated. And so isolation. And so we just need to, that's another thing we talk about. And I think about that. And I'm really glad that you remember that. I remember that too. It was fun. And one of the things that I've gotten some shit about is talking about things that I continue to learn about. And the reason I do is because they excite me, and I feel like really comfortable sharing pieces of things that I might not be an expert in, because I don't claim to be an expert in any of it. I just claim to be really interested. And one of the things that I've really taken to heart as a teacher and an educator, because I've had the opportunity to teach with Rock Tape for 6 years now, and I've taught for a while besides that. And one of the things that I'm really proud of is that I share everywhere that I got everything. I didn't make anything up. I never claimed to be. I'm not an original thinker. I think one of the things that I'm really good at is bringing pieces of information together. And one of the things I always want to do when I'm sitting in a class and when I'm learning, I want to get some questions answered and be able to apply things immediately. But I also really want to go where that teacher, that educator learned from, and where's their information coming from. And then typically I go and read it myself and learn and continue to find from there. And so I really sort of, having taken courses that instructors have done that and given me people, and then other good speakers that I even mentioned some of them in the book, but not by name. I mentioned their name, but I don't mention some of these pieces, but they won't share where they got their information. Physicists and these kind of things. Well, I'm not interested in learning from those people anymore. And so that's sort of the approach. And I feel really comfortable, even though, you put yourself out there and some people respond and like it, and some people respond and not like it. And I guess I feel comfortable sharing this information because everywhere in the book, I'm hyper vigilant of giving everyone credit. And I think that's expressed in the book. At the end of each chapter, there's an additional readings list of places, things that I mentioned earlier in the chapter, things that I didn't. And it really tries to uplift those that I learned from, and hopefully have the people that learn from me, when they want to know more, go learn from those people that I learned from. And so that's really what the spirit of the book is.
That's great, man. We're really on the same page in a lot of ways. I say this all the time. It's almost self-deprecating on purpose, just to be ridiculous. Because if I wasn't ridiculous, I'd be completely boring. So I say, I just say I've never really had an original thought. At least not in the business that I do, and not on drums that much either. I mean, I did forge my way with certain little things here that, you can tell it's me, but it's from all these other influences that I took.
I've been playing along to Jimmy Smith, the organ player.
Oh yeah, I love that guy,
man. The Beastie Boys covered a song by Jimmy Smith called "Root Down."
Yeah.
And so I've been playing to that song on both Jimmy Smith's version, which is 12 minutes, and also the Beastie. That's what I do. I listen to songs. I get the beat, and then I don't listen to the song, and I try to expound upon the beat. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
get
it.
creative.
I
But I
love
do
it.
that
Yeah, I
all the
like
time
to do it.
too. I give credit where credit's due because, I'm always talking about, you and Steve and Perry and all these people because they're not my ideas. The barbecue roll wasn't my idea. That was you taught me that. So, and also the other thing that drives me nuts, I say this, it's one of the quotes in my book. Education, in my opinion, is meant to be shared, not hoarded. You know, I mean, come on, people, what the hell?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like some of the process, what I realized through some of this process about why I do it and thinking about why I'm always sort of like doing things and have a couple projects. And in addition to being a full-time clinician and starting a business last year called the Movement Guild, and
Great.
I'm always sort of creating. And some of that is and I'm always learning. And I think what that stems from is my anxiety. Actually, is sort of what I've recognized. I have a lot of social anxiety. It's gotten worse as I've gotten older. I'm great sort of in one-on-one. I'm great when I'm in front of any number of people because I can just sort of go because I study a lot. But what it is a control thing for me. I like to study and read. I like to synthesize. I like to write and create because it's things that I can control versus going out into like a concert or a bar or a restaurant or a party where there's a bunch of people and that I don't know a lot of those people. And then I start to get wound up in my head. And so that's where a lot of that comes from. Actually, I know it's sort of funny to recognize, but play to your strengths, I guess at this point, man, right?
That's where I swear to God, Adam, is similar here with anxiety. I can speak in front of 480 doctors in Paris a year and a half ago. I don't care about that. That was easy. I knew what I had to say. Most of them liked it, some of them didn't, but you're never going to please everyone. But put me into an airport or a busy place or a mall I'd rather stay away from the crowds. I don't know what it is anymore. Just
Absolutely.
too much information.
If I do go out, it's headphones in, hat on, hood up,
Yeah.
hands in my pocket. And I just like it's.
You go into stealth mode. You got to put on your cloak of invisibility, man.
It's sort of funny. It's like the dichotomy, I guess. I don't know.
It would be fun to have one. Well, that's really cool. I'm really glad that this is out there, and I'm glad you told me about it because I did not know you were working on another book, but I should have figured you are. And now you've got another one you're going to do.
I mean, again, like I sort of kept it quiet. I was just sort of hammered. It took me a while. I can't believe how long it took, actually. It was about 3 years.
Same here.
I started writing.
I thought I'd be done in like a year. I thought I'd be done in 8 months or something. That was 2 years ago. Yeah, it's like
some of the book, like it came and I started to read it, and when I was to the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to start reading through this again, and I was starting to write on some of the neurology actually. And I was sort of getting depressed and I was anxious, and I read back on it and I was like, this is bullshit. I don't feel like I can talk about it well enough. This is like such dense information. I put it down. What I told myself was to learn more information, which I was, but at the same time, I kind of stopped everything in my life, and I, kind of got depressed and went down that spiral. And that's when I went and got treated by Mike, the neuro editor of the book.
Right.
Who, wrote some chapters and threw in a lot, he wrote one chapter and threw in throughout the rest of the book.
That's great, man.
But he then, and then it just made sense. It sort of clicked. We like each other and hang out anyway. And I'm always grilling, and we sit and have beers or work out and kind of go back and forth about strategies. And so it made sense for him to sort of write the book from a neuro perspective. It sort of freed me from having like that voice because there's so much information. And Mike, along with Dave Traster, that they're partners and good friends of mine, and they worked with Carrick straight through. Like they were
cool.
Carrick on a regular. They were both sort of there, so they have great experience and are just amazing.
I learned about Carrick through you.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm excited. I feel great to have it. Traster gave an endorsement. Eric Cobb is another one. I mean, when we're talking about people that I've learned from and want to learn from, Eric Cobb from Z Health is another one who applies neurology in a really effective way. Eric was gracious enough to read the book ahead of time and also write a endorsement. So
good.
I'm excited. And really what it's for the clinician that wants, or the movement professional that that's frustrated with missing, because we all miss people. And, the movement musculoskeletal based approach is a great approach. And even like from the best movement practitioners, if we're keeping it just at a 3-dimensional applying movement, biomechanics, we're going to miss people because a lot of people, these people that have chronic injuries or like pain on one side of their body or pain in both joints on the same, both joints, these are people that are not integrating their information well. And so being able to apply this brain-based approach it just gets these people better. A lot of times, like if you're most midline people that have spine pain, right? If we look at like the brain, we look at neurology and like how things are innervated from most medial to lateral. Midline stability includes the eyes and the ears, right? I mean, it's most midline, so spine, eyes, ears. And so just from that perspective, adding eye exercises, adding vestibulo-ocular, adding cerebellar, adding just these pieces that we can drive more information up into the brain, it's a different paradigm, and it gets that many more people better, I think. And it's these people, the people that have gone everywhere else that haven't gotten better, that then come to me, and I feel more free to apply this approach, and it makes a difference a lot of times.
Can you give an example of something that you would do, let's say, to stretch the cerebellum a little bit? Maybe it's a cognitive thing or a movement thing, or combined. Like what?
So your question to me, just because you cut out, Carl, your question to me is like, how would I apply like cerebellar layering into an activity with somebody? Was that your question?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Just an example.
Yeah. I think, well, one of the assessments that I'll look at, we think about the cerebellum, and the cerebellum is responsible for, it's sort of referred to as the head of the orchestra. It refines movement, right? There's a bunch of places in your brain that have maps of the body. We've heard these terms maps. And there's a lot of different types of maps. And the cerebellum is sort of where the head, all the maps sort of coordinate. The cerebellum is responsible for fine-tuning movement quickly. It's responsible for rapid alternating movement. And so your right cerebellum innervates the right side of your body as responsible for rapid alternating on the right, along with your left frontal lobe. So those sort of movements. And so what we're looking at, thinking about, one of the things that I look at on anybody that comes in is rapid alternating movement, and just the finger tap test or dysdiodocokinesia type thing.
Yeah, sure.
Finger tap, heel tap, shin, heel to shin, pronation, supination, whatever we're going to call it at whatever joint, but the ability to go one side to the other. And I look at that on everyone at this point. And let's say that somebody comes in, they have right back pain. And so, I'm going, right back pain. Well, that's most of the time, it's left side of the brain. And then I see that in addition to right low back pain, they maybe have right or left side. Let's just keep it simple. And right side, when I have them do rapid alternating movement in their shoulder, it's different down the right. It's slower, harder to go. Then I have them drop down a joint. So we start most medial, it's the shoulder. Now we go to the elbow or wrist, and I have them maybe do like a rapid alternating movement.
Sure.
And it's also on the right. And I'm like, well, that's the right side. Maybe it's and then I go to finger tap test, and that goes a little more lateral in the cerebellum in the brain. And that's also on the right. I'm going, right upper extremity. I know that I can drive a cerebellum or something if I'm trying to layer input, maybe, that kind of piece. So I think that, and then the same thing, you look upper and lower. So then if I'm going to work, maybe I choose, depending on the threshold of the person and how fragile they are or not fragile, if it's an athlete or maybe general population and they're not that dizzy or like weak or whatever, maybe I have them do an exercise, a step up, a reach, a pull, a squat, a lunge, or whatever I'm going to have them do. And maybe their active recovery then is something that's going to drive cerebellum. Maybe while they're doing an activity, they're doing a body blade or a rapid alternating movement. And then maybe so there's these things, and you can see, and again, because if we think about it from the brain taking up information and having to reconcile proprioception, vestibular, ocular systems, if your brain is getting different information from one or more of those systems, it's not the same stuff through the those are reactions. They all come in the brain stem before they go up and back out. Mm-hmm. And if the brain is getting different information from those different systems, cognition needs to be used to reconcile the reactions. And then there's less cognition. And so then you can see that in movement a lot of times. Yeah. And you can see it. And if you're questioning it, one of the things you could do, let's say you see the rapid alternating movement and it's down on all the one side, and then I'm going to pick something to look at. Maybe it's this. And then maybe I have you dual tasks. So maybe I have you do an activity, a cerebellar activity, and I say, give me every other month of the year, or words that start with L, or whatever. And if your form breaks down even more, then I know that you're having to use cognition. So then maybe I can remove that, or I want to use it. So these are just ways. So then maybe I have you do a rapid alternating movement during the exercise. Maybe I have you do it in between your exercises. Maybe I have you. So there's all sorts of ways to apply this.
I love it, man. I love that. All that stuff is just so good. I love what you're doing.
One of the things, and it really aligns with what Rock Tape talks about. And Rock Tape, one of the things they talk about a lot is test retest. Mm-hmm. And for me, what that means is, like, if you know what should happen when you provide an input into the system, you can see if it happens or not. And that goes from like a driver taking my hand and reaching and knowing that if I take my hand and reach to a certain spot, it's going to create motion in my body. But it also, you know, it's a drive-by reaction. Like if I have you look somewhere or do something, that's also an input. We get to see if it changes or not. And so it's really the same thing. Neurology is the same as movement. It's knowing your anatomy. And that's what has floored me over the past couple of years, and has really humbled me, is just trying to learn, frankly, learn the neuroanatomy. Pathways, you know,
there's a lot of stuff, man.
And the fun part about it, just like movement, is that you can keep it really general and really specific, and you can still have a lot of change.
Yeah.
And those that you do then, and then sometimes you don't see the change, and you need to get a little bit more specific, and then you can also see change. So the more you can keep it general and just apply general principles, recognizing, hey, if it doesn't make it, it's going to make a difference for some, and when it doesn't, you probably aren't diving deep enough, because there's multiple pathways up and out. It's not just in and out, right? And so the same output, dysfunctional output, could be anywhere along the stop, up or out. And you're looking at the output by putting in an input. That's where your summative experience of assessment and knowing anatomy and being able to say, I need to target this part of the brain. So I don't know if that's
all that stuff is just so good, so good. So you, for people who are watching and listening, they can go to Amazon and buy this. Is there any other place they can buy it? Is it
As of Monday, it's Amazon, and then on my website, which will be up next week, and you can buy like the hard copies or the Kindle.
Oh, good.
So the hard copy right now, it's only the Kindle. As of this Monday, so June 15th, if everything goes right, it might be the 16th, most likely the 15th. The book will be available. The hard copy will be available. I just got my proof.
Your proof, okay.
Today, so looking at it, and want to change a few things in it, but not even a few things, like one little piece I need to change. But
so I'm just curious, as an author almost to be here, is that through Amazon as well? The hard copy, is that through them?
It's through Amazon as well. Yeah.
And they send you a proof.
Yeah. They'll send you a proof for how much the book costs.
Yeah.
So for print, and they don't charge any more than that. So
that's cool.
Yeah, and that way you can just look at the hard copy before you go ahead and print it. So
yeah. Well, I'm really glad you have this. I can't wait to dive in. So again, after I submit my stuff, I'm literally submitting tonight to Amazon everything: the cover, the graphics, and so it's basically 2 files: a PDF cover, a PDF of 400 something pages. Bye. And I'll do the Kindle down the road very soon, because that's a little different, but it's
Kindle
easy.
Create. I can guide you through it.
I have it actually open on my desk, my thing here. But if I run into a problem, I'll let you know. I was talking with them the other day, and it looks pretty easy. It'll get on Kindle, but I'm not here to talk about me. Bottom line is, I love that we can self-publish this way now. It doesn't cost anything.
It just made so much more sense for me. I mean, even like we live in as large as our world is, it's still not a very large world.
No, it's not. I mean, cripes, it's amazing. Well, it's really good to see you, man.
Great to see you.
And I just want to show the cover again to people. I want to show them again.
You're here too. So here's the cover.
Oh yeah. That's a better picture. Foundations of Movement: A Brain-Based Musculoskeletal Approach. And it's by Adam Wolf. So you can search it on Amazon. For some reason, the link you gave me last night didn't want to open. Well, it did later, but I actually went and I searched, and it came right up, and I bought it that way because it's faster.
Thank you.
Probably because I tried to open it through Facebook Messenger, which is not always friendly. So, people, if you're in the business, if you have any interest in this, whether you're a movement specialist, a fitness trainer, PT, OT, or just someone who likes to read cool stuff that's very informative and learn about the brain and the body and get the book. Get Adam's book.
Thank you for your time today, my friend. Good to see you.
Hey, you too, man. Hang on with me for 1 minute after I say goodbye. So thanks again, my friend. Keep drumming.
Absolutely. Every day after this, I'm going to go downstairs and drum.
You got 2 drum sets there, right?
I have 2 acoustic drum sets and an electric drum set and a set of congas.
Okay.
I have a Fender P-bass at work and a Fender Jazz bass here, and a keyboard and 2 ukuleles and an acoustic guitar and an electric guitar here in my house. I'm overcompensating for my childhood and playing all this.
Here's the deal. I'm coming out. We're going to jam for real.
I got a band name, man. You could be a part of it. My band name's going to be the Dead Uncles.
Let's do it.
Because my uncle was a drummer and he died a bunch of years ago. But my one of the drum sets I have that I just bought a new set after finishing this book as a present. But the first set was there's a set of 63 Slingerland. It's a blue Duca.
Oh, beautiful.
And yeah, it's beautiful. But yeah, so in honor of my uncle whose drums they were that I started, the dead uncles.
Man, that's awesome. You know, I was actually talking to a musician the other day from Chicago. I don't know if he's more in the jazz and salsa world. Chico Freeman. Vaughn Freeman was his dad. And when I lived in Evanston back in '82 to '84, I used to go see those guys. You know, all these places like Joe Siegel's Jazz Showcase, Rick's Cafe, Park West.
Yeah, a lot of people there.
Grant Park, Navy Pier. Grant Park's Millennium Park now, I think, but I saw Miles Davis there. I saw who did I see? Fleetwood Mac. I don't know. I saw a lot of great bands in Chicago when I lived there. It was great. But the scene in Chicago, man, there's some great players that have come out of there. You're surrounded by greatness.
The band I want to be in. I need a bass player. I need an organ player. I need a guitar maybe and a trombone player. That's the kind of music I'm going to jam.
Do you sing?
Oh man.
Me neither. Great.
Grunt. I grunt.
I don't even do that. To sound, my grunts are bad. But yeah, seriously, once I get this, I swear I'm going to have a life starting tomorrow. Except I have a Zoom workshop all weekend I'm hosting. But whatever, that's the easy part compared to the book. But I'll get out there. You know, we should jam, go hang out. Meanwhile,
thank you.
Yeah. Meanwhile, thanks again. Hang on with me. Thanks to everyone for watching and listening. And I hope you go buy the book.
Please do.
Have a great day.